So many doctors will erroneously look at ferritin as the best marker for iron status. Ferritin doesn't become elevated until quite late into the disease. Usually in the early stages, the best way to check is by looking at transferrin saturation. It's the earliest and most accurate marker. Now, this particular paper is saying if it's above 40%, 45%. If it's above 45%, then that's a very good indication. One might even say that if it's above 40% or even a little bit higher than that, I personally know that I feel best if I have, I'm sitting between 30 and 35%. When I get above 40, that's when I know that's when my symptoms kind of start going downhill. It turns out that sex hormone binding globulin tends to be reduced under conditions of oxidative stress and inflammation. If we look, for instance, at obesity, in metabolic syndrome, in PCOS, in other inflammatory conditions of the liver, these kind of systemic inflammatory conditions are usually associated with lower sex hormone binding globulin. In fact, sex hormone binding globulin is associated with insulin sensitivity. As someone regains insulin sensitivity, sex hormone binding globulin improves, it increases. So it makes me wonder, given that the body is innately intelligent, why would it want to increase sex hormone binding globulin levels in the context of iron overload? This particular case study was looking at a case of hemochromatosis, which was unmasked by testosterone replacement therapy. He developed erythrocytosis. It's well known that people who take testosterone replacement or anabolic steroids can develop high hematocrit, basically a thickness or higher viscosity of the blood. And in some cases, this can be very, very, very dangerous. And so this is one of the reasons why people who do take anabolic steroids or do take testosterone generally need to measure their blood parameters, because they can develop too many red blood cells. The blood can get too thick. Well, the same thing can happen with hemochromatosis. In fact, elevated hemoglobin, elevated hematocrit is quite common when it comes to people who have hemochromatosis. You see, if you have too much iron, then that can be a signal for erythropoiesis, which is basically the development and maturation of red blood cells. Testosterone can do the same thing. So when you add up the effect of high testosterone along with high iron, that is potentially going to lead to a situation where you're producing too many red blood cells, hematocrit gets too high, your blood gets too thick, and you develop circulatory failure. If the body senses that there is some degree or the initial steps of iron overload, then it might adapt to that in a way as to reduce free testosterone levels so that you don't get the additional or the added effect of both extra iron and high testosterone on blood cell production.
Annotated and summarized, easy to share with loved ones. The description below the title for this video has these summary points.